Hello and welcome to another ACY Securities Market Update. My name is Alistair Schultz and I'm going to be your host through today's trading journey. Now in today's session we're actually going to be looking at NFP. Non-farm payroll is due out tonight at 12:30 p.m. and I just wanted to give a bit of a brief overview on what has gone on in the past, especially this year of 2020, and the releases that have come out for NFP and why it might be different tonight and from what you would usually expect. Now, in January, the NFP result that ACY actually hosted a trading competition where the first place trader won $53,000 US and had grown his $5,000 account in the 1 hour period that was allocated 9.8%. Now, at this time, the market situation overall from a global perspective was quite different, but specifically for the US, you generally see after the post-Christmas lull that you get data coming down. And we had a variety of different scales to sort of look at when it comes to that. We saw economic data remain relatively stable. We had unemployment rates remaining at 50-year lows. Monetary policy was adjusted to fit in with the flexibility and no rate cuts were delivered. In the second half of the month, we started seeing talks about coronavirus. And even though this was the case, when it came to the early February release of NFP data, we saw that there was a rise that actually occurred. But at that point then, the fear factor hadn't really locked in. The containment efforts that were going in were keeping everyone sort of on a level playing field, and we hadn't started seeing data that was affecting the supply chains going on. So that first NFP announcement that you usually get in the year, you expect to have sort of lower employment figures with less people applying for jobs and less jobs actually available throughout Christmas. But then when you get the second one, you usually see a boost in that figure. Now, even though that's been the case, you can see on here that we've got a number of different data things. So that very January 1st one, we see the data come down and it was actually below the forecasted figure. When it came to February, it was an increase. Now, what are we expecting to happen tonight? Now, that is something that's going to be a little bit different. In February, we did start to see the beginning of that coronavirus impact and we were starting to see employment figures go. But now the forecast is for 175,000 and the global scenario has dramatically changed. We've had declines in supply chains being the forefront of the affected stuff. And we've also found that numerous business reports are coming out where they are expecting their revenues to have declined from the forecast that they have for themselves. In addition to that, we're starting to see reporting agencies and central banks talk about GDP probably going to be missing the expectations for this quarter and quite potentially the rest of the year. So why is that going to happen and what are we going to see around the data tonight? Well, stocks are already behaving wildly, as you may have noticed, and that's going to be no different when it comes to price action around NFP, I believe, this evening. So there's really only three potential outcomes or scenarios that we can expect. The first is that it comes out as expected. And as you can see what I've got written up behind me, you'd expect to have a normal range between 150K and 200K. Now, if this is likely to occur, then the trends of coronavirus are likely just going to continue and you will not see a great change in the market itself around NFP. Now, the next one that you could expect is that we have a worse than expected outcome that comes from tonight. So this means that we're going to see data below 150K. And then that means that the US dollar is going to devalue as what it's worth. And we're also likely to see Fed action occur. Now, when I talk about this, we've already heard speculation that the Fed may cut rates again in the coming months. But if this was to occur with NFP tonight and we were to see worse data than what was forecast, it may prompt them to do another double cut like they did just last week. So be aware of that and the potential of that occurring. The next side of things is that we have better than expected, and that would mean that we have 200K come out well above the 175 that's forecasted. Now, if that happens, we could expect the US dollar to climb. We'll likely see gold prices climb as well. But the big factor that I'm really concerned about is, will that change the expectations for the Fed when it comes to cuts in the future? Now, if this is the case, my personal opinion is that we're likely to see the next cut that comes from the Fed be about 25 basis points, as opposed to the double cut we saw last week. Now, if it's negative data, it's obviously going to be the inverse of that, and it's going to be another double cut. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens on that forefront to see where we really go. Now, I want you all to be careful with your trading tonight. In my opinion, when it comes to this, we've had so much negative information coming around, especially on a global scale, that even if there is a long move in price, I don't believe it's going to be something that can be sustained. So I firmly believe that we're probably looking at short action tonight, but we'll have to wait and see what goes on. Now, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Obviously, like and subscribe so you can get more content from us, but if you would really like to send an email to me or get in contact, ask some questions, feel free to send me an email at talktoal@acy.com. And have a great trading day ahead.